welcome back to DFC Books.
Today we're launching a massive deep dive.
We're tackling one of the most structurally and I think emotionally important novels in history, Gustave Flaubert's Madame Bovary from 1857.
It is, and it's almost impossible to overstate its importance. I mean, when we look at Flaubert, we're not just looking at a story of adultery.
No.
We are watching the birth of modern literary realism. We've compiled a stack of critical excerpts, and we're focusing specifically on the character mechanics and, the crucial plot points Flaubert used.
And our mission today, for you, is to provide a kind of comprehensive shortcut. We want to move past a simple plot summary and really drill down into the core motivations, the stylistic choices, and the specific chain of events that shape Emma Bovary's fate.
And the fate of those around her, which is maybe even more important.
Absolutely. We're going to trace this transformation from romantic illusion into catastrophic financial reality chapter by chapter. We'll be focusing really intensely on character details and what single event truly defines each section.
So think of us as your guides through Flaubert's, often merciless landscape. We're going to spend time with the characters, understand the weight of their choices, or their inability to choose.
And how Flaubert uses these minute, almost painful details to root this huge, emotional drama in the ugly specifics of provincial life.
And crucially, provincial accounting.
We have to begin with Charles Bovary.
We have to.
He's the man whose, monumental mediocrity is the bedrock upon which Emma builds her dreams and her eventual ruin. The novel doesn't even introduce him as a hero or a doctor.
No, it introduces him as the new fellow at school. He's about 15, and the scene is just instantly, profoundly humiliating.
Flaubert starts right in the middle of it with this unforgettable image, right? It just immediately establishes Charles's permanent state of social inadequacy.
Yes. He walks in, this country lad in the most inappropriate clothing, a short school jacket of green cloth, black buttons, way too tight at the armhole so it shows his red wrists accustomed to being bare.
It's the clothing, isn't it? It just screams outsider. This isn't just a poor student. He's physically constrained by his family's expectations. He's trussed up like a provincial turkey.
Precisely. Flaubert is showing us that Charles is physically, socially, and emotionally ill-fitting before he even opens his mouth. And the awkwardness is punished immediately when he can't figure out where to put his cap.
It falls on the ground.
And the other boys just explode in laughter. The punishment that follows is one of the most famous details in literary history because it basically functions as an epitaph for his entire life.
The furious master makes him conjugate the Latin phrase, ridiculous sum, I am ridiculous, 20 times.
That humiliation just screamed at him in front of his peers. It lands on him like a psychological anchor. It completely defines him.
And that public shaming shows us why he's so stunted, so lacking in ambition. Flaubert then steps back to give us his origin story.
Right, linking his professional limits directly to his dysfunctional parents. His mother, who was deeply ambitious, centered all her shattered, broken little vanities on Charles. She wanted him to be a lawyer or an engineer.
But his father?
His father was this charming but completely negligent ex-army surgeon who couldn't care less about letters.
So Charles's life is just governed by these contradictory, unfulfilled expectations. We learn he's diligent, he rules his paper, uses the dictionary, but he lacks finish and composition.
It's diligence without any creativity or vision. Flaubert describes him later as working like a mill horse, who goes round and round with his eyes bandaged, not knowing what work he is doing.
He's capable of effort, but incapable of sight.
Exactly. And when he goes to Rouen to study medicine, this blindness continues. His mother sends him weekly veal to eat alone, hoping he'll focus.
But the crucial shift here is Charles's interpretation of freedom. He's away from home, and what does he discover?
Indolence, which he mistakenly believes is a fine proof of his freedom. This shows up as a passion for dominoes, skipping lectures, learning to make punch, and eventually how to make love. His whole idea of liberty is pushing little sheep bones around on a dirty marble table in a pub.
It's a tragic self-deception. He prefers these cheap, stolen, immediate pleasures to the grinding work of real ambition. It makes his future failures inevitable.
Which perfectly sets up his first disastrous marriage in Part 1, Chapter 2, to Heloise Dubuc, the older widow.
Yeah, the marriage happens right after his studies are done.
And she's so physically uncomfortable, Charles only remembers that her feet in bed were cold as icicles. And the Bovary parents push this match fiercely because of her supposed fortune. They see marriage not as affection, but as a financial transaction, a social upgrade.
And this brings us to the most important event of Chapter 2, the realization that the whole foundation of the marriage was a lie.
A betrayal that introduces the theme of financial ruin very, very early.
So what's the discovery?
The crucial discovery is that Heloise had lied. Her property was completely eaten up with mortgages by a notary who just took off.
Well, they're not just socially humiliated, they're financially wrecked.
Totally. And the conflict that follows is violent and physical. The elder Monsieur Bovary, in his sheer exasperation, smashes a chair.
Wow.
That outburst symbolizes the destruction of their false social ascent. This single event forces Charles and his wife, who dies shortly after, conveniently clearing the path to flee to Toast, driven by shame and ruin.
So now at Toast, Charles is widowed. His first marriage ended in, well, cold feet and financial wreckage. And this is when Emma, Mademoiselle Rouault, is introduced.
Right, it's precipitated by Charles treating her father, old Monsieur Rouault, for a broken leg.
And Rouault himself is this wonderful piece of Flaubertian provincial color.
Oh, he's great. Fat, bald in front, wearing earrings, smelling distinctly of brandy, but he shows up with 75 francs and a turkey to pay Charles.
A man of his word, at least.
Exactly, and it's during a house call at the farm, the Berthaud, that Charles encounters Emma for the second time. And the description of the farm life just contrasts so sharply with this delicate, refined image of Emma.
Flaubert immediately elevates her above the setting, doesn't he?
Right.
She's sewing in the kitchen, but the description focuses on small drops of perspiration on her bare shoulders.
Bathed in light, filtering through the shutters, it's an intoxicating, immediate physical appeal for Charles.
And for him, this is instantaneous infatuation, far beyond whatever he felt for Heloise.
And his response is crucial. It's obsessive overanalysis. He replays her words, tries to define her former life, and desperately asks himself, if you should marry after all? If you should marry?
His fixation is physical. A parched throat, sleepless nights.
Constantly turning his head toward the Berthaud farm.
He's not falling for a woman. He's falling for an image, an antidote to his own mediocrity. He tries to freeze her in that perfect, sun-dappled moment. He can't see the real Emma.
That inability to see reality is the central tragedy of Charles. But while Charles is focused on this romantic fixation, Flaubert pulls back the curtain to show us the cynical reality on the Rouault side.
Rouault is a wealthy farmer, but he needs money. Now.
Immediately. He owes the mason, the harness maker, and he needs a new cider press shaft.
It's dead again, mirroring the end of Charles's first marriage, which makes the most important event in Chapter 3, old Rouault's internal, transactional decision about his daughter.
Absolutely. The decision is not about Emma's happiness or Charles's virtue. It's entirely pragmatic and financial. He thinks, if he asks for her, I'll give her to him.
So Rouault's acceptance is predetermined by economics.
Completely. And Charles, terrified and procrastinating, finally proposes at the very last second at the corner of a hedge, stammering the words out.
And Rouault accepts instantly.
Of course. Charles is just swept along, feeling both relief and a strange sense of fate taking over, never truly owning the moment. And this sets the stage for a marriage founded on Charles's romantic delusion and Rouault's pragmatic debt management.
The wedding in Chapter 4 is one of Flaubert's great set pieces.
A satirical masterpiece of provincial consumption. It's 16 hours of rustic, over-the-top excess, designed not for elegance, but for volume.
It's the moment the bourgeoisie tries to perform aristocracy, and it immediately descends into the grotesque. 43 people, arriving in carts and carriages. Flaubert makes sure you feel the unsuitability of the guests' attire.
The details are just brutal and fantastic. You see the men in stiff new boots and formal coats that only come out on state occasions, but you also see the lower guests in their best uncomfortable blouses.
And the visual emphasis is on the lack of refinement, especially the evidence of rushed, brutal self-grooming.
Yes. Men with diagonal gashes under their noses or cuts the size of a 3-franc piece along their jaws from hurried shaving. It's an affirmation of their essential clumsiness.
And in the middle of this forced spectacle, Charles fails. The most important event of Chapter 4 is his professional and social failure at his own wedding.
He did not shine. He answered feebly to the puns, doubles entendres, compliments, and chaff that were directed at him. He's overshadowed by the very spectacle meant to celebrate him.
Like his first day at school all over again.
Exactly. And add to this the silent presence of Madame Bovary Sr., who was never consulted about the marriage and had not opened her mouth all day. A palpable layer of unspoken family tension hovering over the 16 hours of feasting.
Then quickly, the focus shifts to Emma's internal world in Chapter 6. This is so essential for understanding her tragedy. Flaubert clarifies she's not inherently malicious.
No, she is fundamentally misinformed by literature. Precisely. Her entire emotional structure is built on this fictional scaffolding. She read Paul and Virginia, dreaming of grand, exotic romance. She looked at plates of Mademoiselle de la Vallière and expected a life of courtly, dramatic passion.
She's addicted to excitement and drama, rejecting the mundane reality she sees.
She knew the smell of cattle and how to milk a cow, and she found it dull. Her preference is so telling. She loved the sea only for the sake of its storms, and the green fields only when broken up by ruins.
She wants tragedy, danger, excitement. She has this romantic bias toward destruction.
So when she marries Charles, she genuinely thinks she's achieving that ideal. But when the happiness that should have followed this love not having come, she must, she thought, have been mistaken.
So she tries to manufacture the passion.
She does. And that's the most important event of Chapter 6. Her immediate, utter failure to feel love for Charles. She attempts to force it. She goes into the garden by moonlight and recites all the passionate rhymes she knew by heart.
But the reality is crushing.
She is as calm after as before. She realizes that Charles is no more amorous and no more moved by her performance than he was before. Her romantic spirit is utterly deadened by his stolid presence. Her ideal is permanently incompatible with her reality.
And that disappointment becomes the engine of the rest of the novel.
It does.
That profound disappointment perfectly prepares her for the moment she sees the true, unattainable ideal in Part 1, Chapter 7, the ball at Vaubyessard.
This is a fluke, a crack in the ceiling of her provincial prison. Charles cures the Marquis d'Andevillier's abscess, a simple medical intervention, and the Marquis, seeing Emma and thinking she has a pretty figure, invites the couple.
And this one accidental opportunity changes the course of her expectations forever.
The contrast Flaubert draws between their world and the manor is just astonishing. We go from the smells of toast to a marble vestibule, a billiard room, a vast dining hall.
With pomegranates and pineapples, an absolute sensory shock.
It's the fulfillment of her fictional dreams, made real for a moment. But Flaubert, the realist, won't let us escape without reminding us that even this aristocratic ideal is flawed and aging.
Right, we get that incredible detail of the ancient Duc de la Verdière, the Marquis' father-in-law, a historical figure, rumored to be a lover of Marie Antoinette.
And now he's just sitting there silently.
He's the physical embodiment of faded glamour. He has his napkin tied around his neck and lets drops of gravy drip from his mouth. It's a genius piece of writing.
It is. The height of historical aristocracy reduced to a drooling old man, yet Emma is still utterly captivated by the history he represents. She drinks iced champagne for the first time, shivering with the cold sensation and the sheer exhilaration.
While Charles, naturally, is just marginalized, standing stiffly in his too tight trousers.
While Emma's moment of destiny arrives on the dance floor, she prepares with the meticulous care of an actress, gliding with slight neck movements. She is completely absorbed.
The most important event of Chapter 7 is her waltz with the Viscount.
It's a moment of physical and spiritual fusion. She nearly falls, and in recovering, rests her head on his breast, and she notes two crucial sensory details: the feeling of his fine linen shirt,
and the odor of vanilla and citron exhaling from his beard.
That scent is pivotal. It becomes the sensory marker of the life she desires. It signifies wealth, taste, and the promise of passions daily satiated.
And when she returns to Charles, she is instantly disconnected. The experience has made her reality permanently unbearable.
The descent into misery following the ball is charted in Chapter 9. Toastus is no longer just dull, it's agonizing. Emma finds the Viscount's green silk cigar case, and it becomes this sacred relic.
A connection to that distant, perfect world. It smells of verbena and tobacco.
She romanticizes every aspect of that world, obsessing over the unknown woman who embroidered the case and the distant city of Paris, which rings in her ears like a great cathedral bell.
And this contrasts so sharply with her domestic reality. Charles putting up the horse, a groom in wooden shoes.
Her contempt for Charles just deepens. She detests the very sound of her name, Bovary. She wanted her name to be displayed at the booksellers, repeated in the newspapers.
But Charles is only successful with simple things. Catarrhs and chest complaints. He has no ambition.
And this professional mediocrity becomes a public humiliation. When another doctor humiliates Charles during a consultation, Emma is filled with anger, with shame, feeling a wild desire to strike him. Her frustrated vanity is dangerously close to explosion.
The stress starts to manifest physically.
Yes, validating her belief that she is a tragic figure. She suffers from dyspnoea, that difficulty breathing caused by profound disappointment. She develops a sharp cough, loses her appetite.
And Charles is convinced it's a physical ailment requiring a change of air.
So the change is not professional, it's forced by Emma's nervous collapse. The most important event of Chapter 9 is the decision to move to Yonville-l'Abbaye.
Charles writes to the local chemist, Homais, to check on the population, the other doctors, the income.
And this move, planned for the spring, coincides with Emma's pregnancy. They believe the new location will bring a new phase in her life, a fresh, romantic start.
Even though we, the readers, know it's just another provincial hole.
They arrive in Yonville-l'Abbaye, but the name, despite the suggestion of historical importance, l'Abbaye, is immediately revealed in Chapter 1 to be yet another disappointment.
Flaubert uses the environment to crush any remaining hope.
He does. Yonville is a market town 24 miles from Rouen, known, ironically, for making the worst Neufchâtel cheeses. It's geographically and culturally stagnant, a bastard land whose language is without accent and its landscape is without character.
It's toasts, only bigger.
Basically, even the architecture is a satire. The town hall is a sort of Greek temple awkwardly crowned by a Gallic cock, and right next door is the nerve center of provincial rationalism, Homais' pharmacy.
And in Chapter 2, we meet the architects of Emma's second phase of destruction. First, Homais the chemist.
He immediately introduces himself with these effusive homages. He's an unlicensed practitioner, obsessed with science and status. He'd been summoned to Rouen for infringing the law of the 19th Ventose, year 11.
Wait, let's pause on that. Why does Flaubert include such an obscure, specific piece of jargon?
It's Flaubert's hallmark of realism. It roots Homais firmly in this world of precise, slightly outdated and corrupt French bureaucracy. It's not enough that he's a quack. He's an illegally operating quack.
So his obsequious cordiality is a mask.
For his desire for social standing and self-preservation.
Then we meet Léon Dupuis, the clerk.
Right, employed by the notary. Léon is young, bored, and just waiting for life to begin. He often delays his dinner at the Golden Lion Inn, hoping for stimulating company.
And the dinner scene is the pivot of this section. It's the most important event of Chapter 2.
Emma and Léon meet and recognize their shared specific form of boredom and romantic sensibility.
While Homais dominates the conversation with these verbose, scientific platitudes, Emma and Léon instantly tune into each other.
They are speaking the language of romantic fiction, a language Charles and Homais just do not comprehend. When Léon waxes lyrical about sitting by the fire with a book, traversing countries, mingling one's thought with the characters,
Emma fixes her large black eyes wide open upon him.
it's an unspoken immediate affirmation of their mutual delusion. They recognize each other as fellow sufferers of provincial blight.
Domestic life continues, and in Chapter 3, Emma's disappointment is made concrete with the birth of her child.
Charles desperately wanted a son, whom he intended to name Georges. When the child is a girl, Emma simply turned her head and fainted. She rejects the reality of her daughter, who is eventually named Birth.
It's a rejection of motherhood fueled by her rejection of the marriage.
And Homais, of course, never missing an opportunity to opine, interferes. He preferred names based on philosophical convictions and artistic tastes, like Napoleon or Athalie.
And this conflict between tradition and rationalism surfaces immediately in the most important event of Chapter 3, the baptism controversy.
Charles's father, visiting and drinking heavily, insists on baptizing the child with champagne, a mocking sacrilegious act that utterly infuriates Abbé Bournisien, the priest.
And who steps in?
Homais. He interferes, quoting philosophy, and helps convince the abbé to stay. The child Bertha is born into this unstable world of conflicting social and moral forces.
With marriage and motherhood failing to bring her the rapture she desires, Emma turns inward in Chapter 5.
She attempts to counter her profound boredom with intellectual and spiritual pursuits. She tries to rekindle the mystic languor she recalled from the convent.
She goes to the church, seeking out Abbé Bournisien, drawn by the desire to speak about her spiritual suffering, the emptiness she feels.
This leads to the tragicomic, deeply insightful, most important event of Chapter 5. Emma's spiritual quest fails utterly because of the abbé's profound inability to understand anything abstract or emotional.
She hints at her internal void, saying, "Those, Monsieur le Curé, who have bread and have no—"
And the abbé, a man of simple physical needs, mistakes her meaning repeatedly. He immediately suggests physical complaints. Indigestion, no doubt. Or maybe she's worrying about the poor lacking fire in the winter.
And he excuses himself to go teach catechism.
Leaving Emma feeling weak and quite deserted. Her attempt to anchor herself in Christian humility is undermined not by doctrine, but by the utter mediocrity of the man tasked with interpreting it.
She realizes there is no escape in Yonville. The vacuum is complete.
The stage is set for the inevitable cynical replacement. Léon has departed for Paris, finding Emma inaccessible. The field is clear, and the void is filled in Chapter 7 by Rodolphe Boulanger.
Rodolphe is the perfect contrast to the naive Leon.
Oh, completely. He is wealthy, experienced, and utterly cynical. He's introduced with the markers of practiced seduction, a green velvet coat and yellow gloves. He comes to Charles's office under the simplest of pretenses, to have his plowman, Justin, bled.
And the second he sees Emma, he treats her as a commodity.
He assesses her purely on aesthetics and freshness, concluding she is much prettier, especially fresher, than his mistress, Virginie, who is decidedly beginning to grow fat and has a mania for prawns.
This cold comparison reveals everything we need to know. The most important event of Chapter 7 is his instant, calculated plot to seduce her.
Unlike Léon, there is no hesitation, no shared idealism. Rodolphe resolves to seduce her immediately, charting his strategy. It's only finding the opportunities. Well, I will call in now and then. I'll send them venison, poultry. I'll have myself bled if need be.
He decides to begin boldly, for that's the surest way.
The entire affair is premeditated. Emma is a conquest, not a soulmate. Just a pleasant diversion from Virginie's prawn fixation.
Rodolphe executes his plan flawlessly, leveraging a local gathering, the agricultural show in Chapter 8.
Another chance for Flaubert to satirize provincial pretension. The setting is pure farce. Binet, the tax collector, stiffly drills the firemen. The air is thick with these long, cliché-filled speeches.
About duty, the common amelioration, all this bureaucratic boilerplate.
And Rodolphe manipulates the contrast perfectly. As the counselor drones on about duty and the law, Rodolphe whispers to Emma about a superior moral code that is above, like the landscape. He tells her that passions are the one beautiful thing on the earth.
He uses the noise of public hypocrisy to create a private sanctuary of false intimacy.
And this dramatic, immediate tension is the most important event of Chapter 8. As he speaks of their intertwined fate, he seizes her hand, which is warm and quivering like a captive dove.
She's torn. The distant diligence, the hirondelle, passes, reminding her of Léon.
But the immediate intoxicating scent of Rodolphe's pomade, that familiar odor of vanilla and citron from the Viscount, overwhelms her. The decision is made through her senses, not her intellect.
The affair begins, but Emma, perhaps seeking to justify her moral lapse, demands Charles rise to her level.
In Chapter 9, she suggests he perform a radical surgery to cure Hippolyte, the groom with a club foot. She wants him to be a heroic, modern physician.
And Charles, the mill horse, agrees. He is incapable of professional skepticism. He attempts the operation, piercing the skin and hearing a dry crackling, believing he is succeeding.
The disaster is swift, painful, and publicly humiliating, and this is the most important event of Chapter 9.
The infection spreads,
leading to livid tumefaction and the oozing of black liquid. Charles's medically ignorant attempt fails utterly, leading to the necessary intervention of Dr. Kennevet, who laughs disdainfully, declares the leg must be amputated, and rails against the inventions of Paris.
The ultimate result is not just a lost leg for Hippolyte, it's the complete loss of Emma's respect.
She fixes a burning glance on Charles, feeling that wild desire to strike him. His failure justifies her infidelity in her mind.
She actually repents of her past virtue as of a crime.
Because her loyalty to Charles led her to support his incompetence, which in turn wounded her pride publicly. His failure solidifies his vulgar ways and mediocrity, providing her the moral license to plunge deeper into the affair with Rodolphe.
By Chapter 12, the affair has escalated. Emma's tenderness for Rodolphe grows daily, paralleled by her repulsion to her husband.
She becomes extravagant, loading herself with bracelets and using patchouli, living up to her new illicit identity.
And Flaubert weaves in that small detail of Justin, Homais' apprentice, who silently watches Emma's laundry and admires her.
It's a pure, unspoken infatuation, a silent devotion that Emma is completely blind to. His presence emphasizes how many small, genuine affections she overlooks in favor of dramatic, artificial ones.
Emma, seeking the ultimate romantic conclusion, demands they go away elsewhere somewhere.
Rodolphe finds this idiotic, but agrees to leave next month, planning a carriage trip to Marseille, then Genoa.
But the affair has left a financial trail. The usurer Leroux demands payment 270 francs, reminding Emma that passion is expensive.
And Leroux is the true financial antagonist, hoping his money will thriven at the doctor's as at a hospital. Emma, now focused on her escape, insists on taking the lion-skin traveling bag, a cloak, and 2 trunks.
Which Leroux swiftly charges to Charles.
Of course. And this sets the stage for the most important event of Chapter 12. Rodolphe's calculated, cruel betrayal.
He's fatigued by her intensity, her demand for a woman's fidelity.
So he writes this manipulative farewell letter, hides it in a basket of apricots, and ends it with an adieu divided into two words, adieu, which he thought was in very excellent taste.
A perfect encapsulation of his shallow, theatrical cruelty.
Emma finds the letter, which crackled between her fingers like a plate of sheet iron. She is left breathless, distraught, instantly defeated. This betrayal drives her into a long, debilitating illness.
Following Rodolphe's abandonment, Emma falls into a brain fever for 43 days. Charles, ignoring his patients, is completely ruined by debt in Chapter 14.
Leroux, seeing an easy mark, presses Charles to sign exorbitant bills, 1,250 francs total, lending at 6% interest plus a 25% commission.
This is critical. This isn't just debt, it's usury. Flaubert uses those specific financial details to show that the primary destructive force in her life is not passion, but predatory capitalism.
Exactly. The financial engine of the tragedy is exposed. Meanwhile, Emma enters this brief, manufactured religious phase, buying chaplets and amulets.
She attempts to rest her soul, tortured by pride, at length found rest in Christian humility.
But she quickly rejects this when she finds fault with the arrogance of the religious polemics. Her romantic spirit is incurable. It just seeks a new costume.
And the path to her second affair opens in Chapter 15, ironically facilitated by Homais, who encourages Charles to take Emma to the opera in Rouen.
To see Lucy de Lammermoor, Homais, always commenting on the great men, praises the lead singer as a regular dog, living a dissolute life but possessing great artistic merit.
And the opera itself transports Emma entirely.
Reminds her of Walter Scott, her youthful reading. When the sextet begins, she sees the male lead in a black cloak and wishes to run to his arms, crying out internally, "Take me away, carry me with you."
She's yearning for the ultimate, theatrical, impossible love.
This emotional vulnerability sets the stage for the most important event of Chapter 15, the reunion with Léon Dupuis.
Léon appears in the box behind her.
Now a clerk in Rouen, maybe a little more sophisticated, but still carrying that same malleable, romantic idealism.
And Charles, utterly oblivious, encourages Emma to stay alone and enjoy the spectacle. He even gives her an unexpected 300 francs from his mother for this day.
Emma accepts both the funds and the opportunity, moving instantly toward her second affair, replacing the cynical grandeur of Rodolphe with the shared literary idealism of Léon.
We transition into Part 3, where the affair with Léon is established as gentler, based on this shared intellectual sadness. In Chapter 1, Léon confesses his long-held passion.
Writing and tearing up letters, obsessing over a print of a muse that resembled her. It's an affair of shared ennui, not brutal passion.
But it accelerates quickly into clandestine desperation. The defining, most important event of Chapter 5 is the manifestation of their physical illicit passion. The cab ride.
Emma sends a letter canceling the rendezvous, but delivers it herself. They meet at the cathedral, where they flee the tedious attempts of the beadle to give them a tour of tombs.
And they spend 4 hours in a closed cab, rolling aimlessly around Rouen. Flaubert's description here is masterful. Passers-by stare at the sight, so extraordinary the provinces.
This cab ride symbolizes their entire relationship. Passionate, claustrophobic, aimless, and fundamentally destructive. It is described as being shut more closely than a tomb.
An unsustainable bubble of fleeting passion. But the real world, in the form of Leroux's math, is closing in.
The financial trap springs quickly and irreversibly. Leroux demands payment for a colossal 4,000 franc bill. Emma tricks Charles into signing a power of attorney based on a fake inheritance.
But Charles's suspicious mother immediately burns the document, isolating them permanently from their only source of external financial help.
Emma's behavior becomes manic. She buys new clothes, new furniture. Her life is one long tissue of lies. Her affair with Léon demands extravagant spending to sustain the illusion.
Her ruin becomes absolute when Leroux serves her with a seizure notice, a writ of distraint on her furniture and effects, for an impossible 8,000 francs.
This is the ultimate confrontation with the true antagonist, financial realism.
And it forces the climax of her desperation. The most important event of Chapter 7 is the final, desperate sequence of rejections she faces.
She tries Léon first, begging, even implying she would commit crime for the funds. Léon, lacking any real courage, lies about getting money from a rich friend. He is morally bankrupt, but financially sound.
Next, she attempts to borrow from Monsieur Guillaume, the notary, a man of power.
And his response is cold and transactional. He takes a shameless advantage of my distress, seizing her by the waist and declaring, "I love you," offering money for sex.
Emma, despite her immorality, recoils, realizing she is being sold, crying, "I am to be pitied, not to be sold."
She leaves with this fleeting, paradoxical feeling of so much esteem for herself nor so much contempt for others. Her moral outrage, though financially motivated, is momentarily genuine.
Her final attempt is Rodolphe, the man of brutal cynicism and wealth.
Rodolphe calmly explains he does not have the money, implying that such requests are disagreeable. He finds her desperation unattractive. She screams the final, definitive line of her disillusioned life. "You never loved me. You are no better than the others."
Utterly defeated and ruined by the very lovers she had hoped would save her, she is trapped.
Cornered, ruined, and rejected by love, sex, and money, Emma races back to Yonville in Chapter 8. This is the moment of her suicide, an act driven by practical necessity, not romantic despair.
She cannot face the debt.
She goes straight to Homé's house. Flaubert, ever the master of ironic timing, makes sure Homé is raging at Justin for touching the key to the Capharnaum, the small, dangerous storeroom where the chemicals are kept.
Homé is obsessed with order and safety, while death is literally being plotted in his own kitchen.
But Emma knows exactly where the poison is. The most important event of Chapter 8 is the decisive act of consuming the arsenic. Her memory, honed by desperation, guides her to the third shelf, where she seizes the blue jar and, plunging in her hand, withdrawing it full of white powder, she began eating it.
And Justin, the silent admirer, cries, "Stop."
The ensuing description of her death is of Flaubert's ultimate act of realism, stripping away any romantic notion of suicide. She writes a brief letter, telling Charles to read it tomorrow. The initial bitterness is followed by an icy cold creeping from her feet to her heart.
Charles is horrified by her sudden, violent vomiting.
He notices the white sediment sticking to the sides of the porcelain.
The agony is prolonged and excruciating. She screams horribly, cursing the poison. Charles calls for Dr. Lariviere from Rouen, his old master, the only truly competent doctor in the region.
As she dies, she receives communion from Abbé Bournisien, and Flaubert grants her one final, temporary but powerful delusion, a vision of celestial joy, seeing God the Father on a golden throne.
Her final, desperate psychological victory over the brutal realism of the arsenic before she finally succumbs.
She dies surrounded by Charles, Homé, and the priest, faith, science, and simple love all useless against the poison.
Flaubert ensures the tragedy continues for those left behind. Chapters 9 and 10 detail the wake and the funeral, emphasizing the banality of death.
The wake is a study in human self-absorption. Homé and Bournisien, the religious and the rationalists, spend the night arguing politics and religion, falling asleep opposite the corpse, their stomachs protruding.
Homé is terrified of miasmata, obsessed with spreading chlorine water.
Prioritizing his reputation for hygiene over genuine grief.
Charles's despair is profound and immediate. He asks for a piece of Emma's hair. Homé, ever clumsy, nervously cuts it, piercing the skin of the temple in several places. A final, small violence inflicted on the corpse.
And the most important event of Chapter 10 is the final farewell at the cemetery. As the coffin is lowered, Charles watches it descend, feeling it seemed descending forever.
He throws handfuls of earth and cries the final, simple word of his loss. Adieu.
In Chapter 11, Charles's life collapses entirely. He refuses to part with any of Emma's possessions, which allows Leroux, the vulture, to continue profiting from his grief by forcing him to sign new, exorbitant bills.
Charles is completely undone.
He suffers further domestic betrayals. Félicité runs off with Theodore, stealing the remaining wardrobe. He receives the final cruel news of Léon's marriage to Mademoiselle Léocadie Leboeuf.
Léon, the idealist, choosing a safe, wealthy, bourgeois path after all.
And then, the final piece of reality snaps into place. Charles stumbles upon Rodolphe's hidden farewell letter, "Courage, Emma, courage," in the attic. The full extent of the betrayal is finally understood.
His final phase is one of absolute ruin, despair, and physical exhaustion. He stops visiting patients, walks about unshaven.
And the most important event of Chapter 11 is his silent confrontation with Rodolphe, which seals his final broken state.
He runs into Rodolphe and approaches him with a somber fury, but he cannot speak a word.
Rodolphe notes Charles's face is red, but soon the look of weary lassitude returns. He cannot even muster the energy for rage or violence.
Flaubert uses Homé one last time for contrast.
Homé, the immoral, self-serving quack, is the only one who prospers. He is the happiest of fathers, the most fortunate of men, with all his children assisting him in his flourishing pharmacy. He represents the triumph of crass, modern opportunism.
Charles, the embodiment of doomed sincerity, is found one day sitting on a garden bench, his face still flushed. He dies, broken by debt and grief. And his final words are the devastating, haunting echo of Emma's final suffering.
They are. I am thirsty. Oh, so thirsty.
This detailed journey through the life, affairs, and ruin of Emma Bovary is Flaubert's definitive statement on the 19th century middle class. This is where he dissects that devastating collision between romantic delusion, embodied by Emma, and the relentless, ugly reality of provincial life.
Embodied by Charles's mediocrity and the cynical opportunism of Rodolphe and Leroux, what's fascinating here is how the tragedy is fundamentally anti-romantic. Emma was striving to be a tragic heroine out of Walter Scott or Dumas.
But her death was sealed not by a jealous lover or a duel, but by debt.
Exactly. She was defeated by Leroux's math, the 6% interest, and the writ of distraint. Flaubert insists that the catastrophe of the modern era is financial and bourgeois, not heroic.
She failed to recognize the vague abyss of Leon's lack of courage. She fell for the superficiality of Rodolphe, and all the while she was overlooking the quiet, sacrificial, simple love of her husband.
But Flaubert leaves us with a truly chilling and profound final reflection, something that strips away all the layers of romantic pretense. Charles, the betrayed husband who sought only simple love, ultimately dies from the same final, terrible symptom that Emma experienced during her agonizing suicide. I am thirsty, oh, so thirsty.
What does that tell us about Flaubert's ultimate statement? That regardless of whether you are the idealized lover seeking the impossible rapture or the simple, faithful husband destroyed by reality, the final, crushing manifestation of pain is the same inescapable physical reality.
It suggests that ideals and morality and ambition are all irrelevant in the face of the ultimate biological facts of existence. Idealism cannot save you from arsenic, and sincere love cannot save you from the burden of debt. They are both ultimately victims of the same harsh physical world.
It is a deeply sobering conclusion to a truly modern masterpiece, a stunning and unsparing analysis of Flaubert's work. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Madame Bovary.